All right, let's talk about something we've all wondered about. Probably more than we'd like to admit. How do you really know if she's into you? Well, in this explainer, we're going to be your guide. We're going to decode that hidden language of attraction and hopefully turn those confusing signals into a much clearer roadmap.
You know that feeling, right? You think there's a spark, but then you spend the next 3 days second-guessing every single word, every look. You're searching for a sign, any sign, but it all just feels so ambiguous. Trust me, you are not alone. So today, let's finally start cracking that code.
So why all the mystery to begin with? Why can't everyone just say what they feel? Well, our sources point to a few common reasons. A big one is just the basic human fear of rejection. I mean, nobody likes that. Sometimes it's because of bad experiences in the past that make someone a little more cautious. And, there are also these societal norms that can discourage women from being too direct.
Okay, let's kick things off with our first section and jump right into the heart of the problem. The confusing and, let's be honest, kind of frustrating world of mixed signals.
So the first thing we got to get our heads around is this idea of choosing signals. Just think of it like a whole other language that exists between the words. It's all those subtle, nonverbal, indirect hints someone sends to show they're interested, without having to spell it out. And don't just write these signals off as random. As the Alpha Mind channel points out, this can be a really refined skill. It isn't necessarily about playing games, but more about a different, more nuanced way of communicating that's actually very intentional.
All right, let's build on that. For our next section, we're going to tune into the most common channel for these signals. The one that, let's face it, usually speaks way louder than words ever could. Her body language.
Okay, so right away we hit a classic paradox with eye contact. And get this, two totally opposite actions can mean the exact same thing. She's interested. If she holds your gaze, that's pretty clear confidence. But what if you catch her looking and she immediately darts her eyes away? That can also be a huge sign of interest, just mixed with a dose of shyness or nerves.
Now, beyond just the eyes, you want to look for what our sources call these little involuntary tells. These are things she might do without even thinking about it, like fiddling with her hair or touching her neck. And here's a really powerful one to watch for: mirroring. If you lean in while you're talking, and she leans in too, her body is subconsciously showing you that you're in sync.
So, what is going on with all this fidgeting? Well, one source gives us a really fascinating biological theory. A rush of oxytocin, that's the bonding hormone, creates a real urge for connection. So if she's interested but holding back, she might actually redirect that urge to touch you by touching her own hair or arm instead. Kind of cool, right?
Okay, so we've covered the silent stuff. Now let's talk about what you can learn just by listening. And I don't just mean to the words she's saying, but how she's saying them and what she chooses to talk about. A user on Reddit summed this up perfectly. They said, when a woman is interested, she might become a second mother. Now, that's not about being bossy, it's about this incredible level of attention. She doesn't just hear you, she remembers the little things, the tiny details you mention in passing. So the real key here is to look at how she's engaging in the conversation, not just the fact that she is. Does she bring up a story you told her weeks ago? Does she laugh at all your jokes, even the terrible ones? That's a huge tell. Someone who's genuinely interested invests energy. They ask you personal questions, and they'll work to keep the conversation from hitting a dead end.
But, and this is a really big but, our sources warn that you absolutely have to learn the difference between genuine interest and just basic politeness. Anyone can be friendly and smile, but someone who's actually interested, they bring a totally different level of energy and focus. It's just way more intense.
Next up, we're going to zoom out. Because interest isn't just about what happens when you're talking one-on-one. It also shows up in how she acts in your wider social world. Let's look at the signs you can spot in her actions around you.
This brings us to a really smart concept called engineering proximity. It basically means if she likes you, she's going to find ways to be near you. Do you notice her accidentally showing up at your favorite coffee shop or asking for help with something you're pretty sure she could do herself? Yeah, those probably aren't coincidences. They're often little manufactured excuses to create an opportunity to interact. And hey, don't just watch her friends. Seriously. If you walk by and they all kind of stop talking and giggle while looking at you You can bet you were the topic of conversation 2 seconds earlier. Other huge clues? A little flash of jealousy when you talk to another girl, or a real effort to get you alone even when you're hanging out in a big group.
So we've gone through body language, we've talked about verbal cues and social actions. We've basically decoded a whole library of signals. But even with all this, there is one final and absolutely essential piece to this whole puzzle.
And this is it, right? The million-dollar question. After all the observing and the analyzing, and probably the overthinking, how do you go from having a pretty good hunch to being 100% certain?
Well, the simple and maybe kind of frustrating truth is, you can't. Not from signs alone anyway. As one person on Reddit wisely said, she could do every single one of these things and still just see you as a brother. So signs are not a confirmation.
But hold on, don't give up just yet. Because while signs can't give you that 100% certainty, there is one thing that absolutely can. Here's the thing. Every single source we looked at, from expert articles to YouTube videos to random Reddit threads, they all landed on the exact same undeniable conclusion. The only truly fail-proof way to know for sure is to just communicate, openly and honestly, and see what she says. And this right here is the single most important thing to remember. Think of all these signals not as the finish line, but as the starting pistol. They are not the confirmation. They are the invitation for you to go find out for sure. They're your green light to be brave and actually make a move.
Which leaves us with one final thought. Maybe the question you should be asking isn't just about her feelings. Maybe the real question is about you. After seeing all the signs, are you ready to be brave enough to find out the real answer?